Welcome to the Generation Kids Daily Devo podcast, where we move from wonder to worship, looking for God at work in the world around us, ready to ask the tough questions and discover what His Word has to say to us. Today's episode is titled Movie Plots and Peaceful Thoughts, and it's by me, Casey Taylor. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'd been so excited to see it that I was literally counting down the days, the hours, the minutes, and then the opening scene. I was finally watching the original Jurassic Park movie in the theater. It was 1993 and I was 10 years old, and I knew nothing about the movie except that there were dinosaurs, and I loved dinosaurs. I knew literally nothing else. Back then, there weren't online leaks about movies or YouTube videos that spoiled anything. These were different times, and you saw it when you saw it in the theaters, or when you rented it from Blockbuster after months of it being in the theaters. There were moments in that movie where, even though I knew deep down that I was in a theater and not in any danger, that I really felt scared, and like something scary was right around the corner. These were the first dinosaurs on film that looked like they actually might be real and not mechanical or made out of clay. When the movie was over, I was almost overwhelmed with how much I both loved it and was in awe of it all at once. It was a lot to take in, and there's nothing like the first time you see something, literally. When I went back to the movie theater to see it again, it was an entirely different experience. Not because I didn't enjoy it. I absolutely did. In fact, I loved it. But I didn't feel that same sense of unknowing that caused me to tense up. I could anticipate everything that was about to happen because I knew that it was coming. Fast forward to years later when my kids were watching it, and I could anticipate when my kids were going to need a little cuddling, or when they'd look over at me to see if someone was in trouble, or when they were curious if a certain character would make it. They knew that I knew what was coming.
Here it comes.
And they'd look to me for some reassurance, because I did, in fact, know. When we come to God like my kids did, He wants us to know that He already knows everything that is coming. He knows what's going to happen. And we know this because, well, Philippians 4:6 tells us.
Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God.
Just like my kids sitting in front of the TV watching the dinosaurs, in the same way that I had done so many years before, they felt the anxiety of the unknown. They had to deal with knowing that while the movie was tense, they weren't in trouble. But if they did begin to feel unsure, what do? They looked at their all-knowing Father to help assure them or confirm their worst fears. They knew that I knew and that I could offer them comfort about all that lay ahead. This is what God wants for us not to be anxious, but to pray to Him, knowing and finding comfort and peace in the reality that He knows how all the struggles or anxieties we're facing will end. He wants us to be honest in our feelings with Him, because we know that He isn't facing the same anxiety. He's seen the whole movie, in a way. He knows how it ends, so He's not anxious, He's sure. And He wants us to communicate with Him in light of His certainty, not our anxiety. He offers us peace, not in how things feel, but in how much bigger and stronger and in control He is over all of what makes us uneasy. That's why, after verse 6 in today's passage, which says that when we trust God, leaning not on our own understanding, verse 7 says that this will happen.
And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Jesus Christ.
We can have peace, not because our circumstances are peaceful, but because we know the one who controls the ability for us to have peace. When we know the one who knows all, we can have security, peace, and rest. And we can do what the passage says next. We can be thankful to God, because while we're anxious about our lives sometimes, He is not. He knows the ending. Even if we're anxious, frustrated, hurt, or mad even, He knows the ending. When we speak with God, learn His voice, and learn about Him as we interact with Him, read His Word, and grow in our trust of Him, we can better accept that He is more in the know than we are, like I was with my kids. And we can look to Him when we're anxious, knowing that He has the ending in mind. And if we're going through it, we can handle it, with our confidence grounded not in our circumstance, but in Him.
Now it's time for
Today's Big Question!
Today's big question is, do you believe that when hard or tough things happen to you, that God is still able to turn those current hard things into good things in the long term? How have you seen God use hard things in your past to become future good things? Share what you've seen with someone else. If you haven't, do you think you could do what this verse says and trust God with all that you don't know? He says there will be peace when we do. Are you ready to take Him at His word and see if this is true? Thanks for listening to the Generation Kids Daily Devo podcast. If you want to keep in touch with us on all our social media platforms, check out the links in the description. And if you'd like to help support us as we continue to create meaningful content for kids of all generations, please subscribe to our Patreon by visiting us at patreon.com/wearegenerationkids.